This free step-by-step video comes to you directly from Haynes, creators of the world's best repair manuals. Fix your car or truck the right way with our accurate and reliable information at your side. You can complete more than 200 jobs on this vehicle when you purchase the complete online manual at Haynes.com.
Apply the handbrake. Shock the rear wheels to prevent the vehicle from rolling. Loosen the front wheel lug nuts. Then jack up the front of the car and support it on jack stands. Remove the wheel for the drive axle being replaced. Unstake the drive axle hub nut with a hammer and punch or chisel. Loosen the drive axle hub nut with a large socket and breaker bar. To prevent the hub from turning while you're loosening the drive axle nut, wedge a pry bar between two of the wheel studs. Remove the drive axle hub nut from the axle and discard it. Loosen the nut while counter holding the center stud with an Allen wrench. Then remove the nut and detach the stabilizer bar link from the control arm. Discard the nut. A new one will be used when installing. Remove the lock pin from the castle nut on the ball joint stud. Loosen the nut a few turns, but don't remove it yet. Using a puller, separate the control arm from the ball joint in the steering knuckle. Fully remove the nut. Carefully pry the control arm downwards to detach the ball joint stud from the steering knuckle. Swing the steering knuckle and hub assembly out of the way of the vehicle until the end of the drive axle is free of the hub. If the drive axle spleens stick to the hub, tap on the end of the drive axle with a plastic or soft-faced hammer. Support the outer end of the drive axle with a piece of wire to avoid unnecessary strain on the inner CV joint. Pry the inner drive axle CV joint out of the transaxle. Anticipate transaxle fluid loss when prying out of the inner CV joint, and catch any spilled fluid with a drain pan. If the drive axle plugs into an intermediate shaft, rather than straight into the transaxle, insert the pry bar between the intermediate shaft bearing and the drive axle to pop it loose. Support the CV joints and carefully remove the drive axle from the vehicle. If the new drive axle does not already have one installed, pry the old spring clip from the inner end of the drive axle, or, on models so equipped, the outer end of the intermediate shaft, and install a new one. Install the inner end of the drive axle into the transaxle. It is easier to fully engage the drive axle splines if the opening in the new spring clip is facing down. Pull out on the CV joint housing to make sure the retaining ring has seated. Pull the steering knuckle outward and insert the drive axle outer CV joint splines into the hub. Pry down on the lower control arm, allowing the steering knuckle ball joint stud to be inserted into the lower control arm. Screw on the castle nut to the ball joint stud. Raise the control arm with a floor jack to simulate normal ride height before tightening the ball joint nut to the specified torque. Do not place the jack into position so that it interferes with the tightening of the ball joint nut. Tighten the ball joint castle nut to the specified torque setting. Install the lock pin to the castle nut. Position the lock pin so that it's facing the specified direction. If necessary, tighten the nut a little more to allow lock pin insertion. Never loosen the nut in order to align the hole in the ball joint with the castellations in the nut. Attach the stabilizer bar link to the control arm and screw on a new nut. Tighten the new stabilizer bar link nut to the specified torque setting. Install the new drive axle hub nut. Tighten the new drive axle hub nut while preventing the hub from turning to the specified torque setting. Using hammer and punch, stake the drive axle nut collar into the notch in the drive axle shaft. Install the front wheels and lug nuts. Lower the car to the ground and tighten the wheel lug nuts to the specified torque setting.